The 2024 Royal Rumble is now in the rear view, and we are officially on the road to WrestleMania. And what once seemed like a somewhat predictable match card as recently as a couple of weeks ago, now seems like a giant miss. Some of our top stars, such as the current World Heavyweight Champion Seth Rollins, who was definitely going to fight CM Punk in perhaps the Night 1 main event of WrestleMania, no longer is involved in a storyline that would even guarantee a Night 1 main event. So with all of the uncertainty going on, this is how I predict the road to WrestleMania will shake up for WWE's top stars. The World Heavyweight Championship scene is the most confusing of them all right now that we are certainly not getting that dream match that we've all been anticipating. And although that is a bummer, there are still a few great options and good storylines that can be told for a potential WrestleMania Night 1 main event for Seth Rollins. And because there are so many questions and confusion about this particular match, I believe there are 3 possible matchups that are good enough for a WrestleMania 40 World Heavyweight Championship title match. Now, option A would be a one-on-one rematch for Seth Rollins and Drew McIntyre, specifically because this will give Drew the opportunity to do what he's been craving to do since 2020, and that's winning a world title in front of the fans, especially at WrestleMania in front of a giant crowd. Because his whole thing over the last few years has been that he was the pandemic champion and he didn't hold that title for one single day in front of the fans. And Drew McIntyre has one of, if not the most interesting character on WWE TV right now with his heel work. The way that he attacks CM Punk verbally and through Twitter, and even all of the points that he's made over the past few months have made a lot of sense. Even being a heel, he just makes a lot of sense. Like, you just can't but feel for Drew McIntyre, not only the character, but the real person. Because even though this is being used as a storyline, this stuff that he's saying has to be true to the real person. Because, like, how could it not when you had that moment right in front of you and it was all taken away by something that you couldn't control? So this is why I think that Seth versus Drew, despite the fact that we've seen Drew lose to Seth a couple of times over the past few months, I still say that they can put on a good WrestleMania quality match. But the only way I want to see this is if Drew wins and leaves WrestleMania as champion, because having Seth win again, then yeah, there's no point. Because then it's a been there, done that, we've seen it situation, so yeah. Option number 2 would still involve Drew McIntyre, but we will add Sami Zayn into this match and make it a triple threat. Currently, Sami Zayn is having a little losing streak, and his story right now seems to be finding his way to WrestleMania by any means possible. And as of right now, I don't really see how they can add him into this match. Maybe do something similar to what Daniel Bryan did at WrestleMania 37, but adding Sami Zayn to this match would keep the tradition alive of like every 10 WrestleManias having a triple threat main event for a world title. So for that reason alone, I would be for this. I still prefer the one-on-one match against Drew. And my final out-of-the-box prediction for Seth Rollins' WrestleMania one-on-one opponent would be Dwayne "Rocky" Johnson himself. Because after that press conference, I think they're going to do a tag team match sometime down the line. But a one-on-one match for the World Heavyweight Championship, with The Rock abusing his board powers to insert himself into that position, would be quite the story. I know the Elimination Chamber match is for the number 1 contender for WrestleMania, but what if The Rock inserts himself in the chamber at the last second and inserts himself into the main event of WrestleMania Night 1 against Seth Rollins, and he beats Seth Rollins, and then on Night 2, Cody beats Roman Reigns. So now The Rock has a world title and Roman doesn't, and that's one way to make that storyline a little bit more intriguing as well. That's a very far-fetched prediction, but that would be pretty entertaining as well. Like, that's probably the most entertaining scenario. It's very unlikely, but I just don't know who The Rock faces at WrestleMania at this point. And if it's a one-on-one match, the seeds have already been planted for a match against Seth Rollins, so I'd say that this isn't a bad option as well. We now know that the WWE Women's Championship will be defended in a match between Bayley and Io Sky at WrestleMania. So that leaves the Women's World title on Raw all up for grabs. Although there is one specific storyline that has been being told on Raw over the last few weeks between two people that we all believe will face each other for that title at WrestleMania, and that is between Rhea Ripley and Becky Lynch. And that is the obvious first choice you do, and that's what I believe will happen. I think it will just be a one-on-one match between the two. It's a situation where either woman could come out on top, and that's truly what you want for a WrestleMania World title match. You want unpredictability. And some things are just obviously told on WWE TV. Like, they've pretty much told us that this is the match that's going to happen because that's just the way they do things. So yeah, I believe that this is what's going to happen. But if there were some situation where it didn't happen for whatever reason, an injury or a change of plans, or just them trying to make it seem obvious but it isn't actually the case, just for the sake of this video, my plan B would be to have Rhea Ripley face, and you guys are going to hate this idea, maybe, Rhea Ripley versus Nia Jax versus Becky in a triple threat match at WrestleMania, because Nia Jax has been pretty good, to be honest. I mean, I've never really hated her like the IWC has, but I understand why she was hated. But she's been so good, like, you can't deny it. I've actually seen people turn around and praising her for the pretty good work that she's been doing since she returned. But you can also make it a fatal four-way and add Liv Morgan to it. I think that neither of those are the best option. It's a way to put Raw's top women on WrestleMania in a big match. So it's not a terrible idea, but nah. Rhea Ripley versus Becky Lynch one-on-one, that's the match. Going back to at least last November, it was pretty much slated that Bianca Belair will be going one-on-one with Charlotte Flair at WrestleMania 40. It would be a non-title match, but it will be a big match for Bianca Belair, since over the last few years, she has pretty much became Mrs. WrestleMania. She is currently undefeated at 3-0, and 2 out of her 3 WrestleMania matches so far, in my opinion, were the 2 best matches at those WrestleManias at 37 and 38. She is pretty much filling the Shawn Michaels role for the women's division, where most likely she is going to steal the show on the biggest stage of them all. And there is no bigger non-title match for Bianca this year than to put on an all-time classic against Charlotte Flair. But since Mrs. Flair obtained multiple injuries to her knee last December, that match is 100% not happening. So where does that leave Bianca? Well, there are 2 options I see that are likely to happen for her, and both of these options involve one of WWE's newest signings, Jade Cargill. Now, option A would be the safe route of having Bianca and Jade teaming up against the Kabuki Warriors, Asuka and Kairi Sane, for the Women's Tag Team Championships. I see this as the best option if WWE doesn't feel that Jade is ready for a one-on-one match at WrestleMania of all places. Having her team with Bianca against professionals like Asuka and Kairi would be a great way to showcase her skills and her strengths and make her look even better than she may even be at this point. Although, despite the reports from the Royal Rumble, I think that she did look great. So maybe she is ready, but if you want to be safe, this is the best option. But if WWE does think she is ready, then a one-on-one match against Bianca Belair would be an excellent choice as well. Like that stare down they had at the Royal Rumble, you can just feel the energy. You can just feel that the fans want to see this, that it will be a big time WrestleMania match. Even if it's a short match like Goldberg and Brock Lesnar from WrestleMania 33, where they just do big powerful moves to each other, it can be 5 minutes or even less than that. But regardless of how they would book this match, just simply the visuals of these strong, powerful women could be all that is necessary. the United States Championship. I'm going to make this one quick because I really have no clue who Logan Paul is going to fight. I can only think of 2 or 3 people on SmackDown. Number 1 being the name that's been thrown out there a lot, and that's LA Knight. That's my most likely pick. He deserves a big WrestleMania victory, and it would be his first championship on the main roster. So yeah, he's my first pick. And also for LA Knight, if he's not fighting for that US title, then I could see him and AJ Styles going one-on-one. But besides LA Knight, I could realistically see Logan Paul taking on Montez Ford or Bobby Lashley. Also, I can just throw in Kevin Owens into the mix since I don't really have a clue what he would be doing at WrestleMania either. But since there's so many names on a SmackDown mid-card level, I can also see them doing some type of multi-man match, hopefully a ladder match. That would be my favorite scenario if they were to bring ladder matches back to WrestleMania, because those made WrestleMania feel so much more special. So that's all of the possible things I could think of for Logan Paul at WrestleMania. The Intercontinental Championship. This one is kind of confusing. It's almost as confusing as the World Heavyweight Championship scene, not because of the same reason, but because there are so many possible matches that you can do, and a lot of them are good options. Like, we had that storyline going back a while ago with Chad Gable and Gunther. At that time, I actually believe that Gable would be the one that ends up beating Gunther, and I thought that it may have ended up not happening until WrestleMania, where Gable would try to get that title over and over again and fail, and build himself up to be a top contender for that belt at WrestleMania. But the problem now with that is that ever since they had their last encounter, Gable has kind of fell back into where he was before that storyline, and that's just to Raw's comedy act. So with WrestleMania so close and Gable still being in that situation, I probably would say that this match is out the books. It's still possible. I mean, it's WWE. They can make Gable look like a good enough threat in a few weeks. But yeah, it's not that likely. What's more likely is Sami Zayn, because this is a man that came out of WrestleMania 39, out of the hottest feud of 2023, in the main event of night 1. And as of right now, there doesn't seem to be any certainty that he will even have a WrestleMania-worthy match at WrestleMania, because he's not involved in anything that's interesting. He has his Drew McIntyre feud, but he already lost to Drew on Raw pretty clean. So, like, to do that at WrestleMania, it just seems like it's a waste, because, yeah, we've already seen him lose to Drew. And on the flip side, Sami Zayn versus Gunther for the Intercontinental Championship, that sounds pretty good to my ears. I don't know how it sounds to anybody else, but I'm for it. Sami Zayn deserves a WrestleMania match of that magnitude. Now, he doesn't necessarily have to win, but if he did win, he wouldn't be the worst option to be the person that ends Gunther's long title reign. So I say that Sami Zayn is a valid option. And very similarly, if not pretty much on the exact same boat, is Mr. Jey Uso. He was involved in that same storyline that I mentioned from last year, in the same main event match against Sami Zayn at WrestleMania last year. And yeah, Jey versus Jimmy might be the match for Jey at WrestleMania, and I'm for that. But if they don't want to do that yet, if they want to hold off for that match sometime down in the future, then have Jey versus Gunther for the title. And just like Sami, Jey is a valid option to dethrone Gunther for that title, because he's main event Jey Uso. What is the title main event if main event Jey can't get a big win? So Jey is valid. And now here's a name that we haven't heard from in a long time, and this is a man who has a story of his own that he wants to finish, and that is Sheamus. Sheamus versus Gunther is a storyline that we all loved back in 2022. They put on what may have been the match of the year, a Sheamus versus Gunther match at WrestleMania, even though we had that match last year, which also may have been the match of the year for 2023. Sheamus versus Gunther is a storyline that I feel has not had its finale yet, and it probably won't ever until Sheamus wins that title from Gunther. So Sheamus is another valid choice. We already know that story. Sheamus wants to be that Grand Slam champion. And if they want him to do that, there's no bigger moment and there's no bigger match than this at WrestleMania 40. And those are the three most likely cases I see for the IC title. But yeah, like I said, this is a very confusing one because even outside of these options that I said, there are probably some that I'm not even thinking about. So yeah, I don't know. I mean, I heard people say even Ludwig Kaiser can fight Gunther for that title. I'm not for that yet. That can happen way down the line, but I don't think that's the thing you want to do at WrestleMania yet. I was going to mainly focus just on the title matches for WrestleMania, since there's so many names and so many scenarios, but there's one specific person that deserves their own section, and that is Randy Orton, because as of right now, I don't think anybody has a clue what Randy Orton is doing at WrestleMania. Like, he could be involved with the US title match, and like, that's fine, I guess. But the ultimate match that I would love, and I think we all want to see, is one-on-one Randy Orton and John Cena. Both men have been teasing a WrestleMania one-on-one match on Twitter and Instagram and interviews over the last few months. And like, it's crazy that we still have not gotten a one-on-one John Cena and Randy Orton WrestleMania match. So with that said, that is my ultimate dream scenario. The story tells itself. There's no need to go further in this. They are undoubtedly each other's number one career rivals. So Orton and Cena is my ultimate dream match for WrestleMania. If it's not John Cena, if he's not even there at all, then one thing that could be a little bit interesting is, as of right now, there's no certain match for The Rock. And reports were that Dwayne, part of his deal with TKO was that he had a guaranteed match at WrestleMania 40. And the tag team match is kind of likely, but if he was to have a one-on-one match, there's a story for that right there, because The Rock and Triple H kind of have a little thing going on right now, and obviously Triple H can't wrestle ever again, so they can have their rivalry and have Randy Orton step in for Triple H in honor of Hunter to take on The Rock. That would be amazing. And it will be a kind of full circle moment because Randy Orton's first ever match at WrestleMania was at WrestleMania 20 in a tag team match against The Rock and Mick Foley. So 20 years later, one-on-one, The Rock versus Randy Orton, with Randy defending his mentor, Triple H. Now, a couple of matches that already kind of seem like they're on their way to happening, starting with main event Jey Uso versus his brother Jimmy. The storyline, even though it hasn't really started yet as of this recording, that just seems like it's the match that's going to happen. They are on separate brands, so that story is a little bit tricky, but they can make up any rules they want, so that's the match I see for Jey. And for the WWE Undisputed Tag Team Championships, I could see R-Truth and The Miz taking on the Judgment Day. I'm not the biggest fan of this match, but it seems like the route that they're going, and there's no need to fantasy book something that seems like it's going to happen already, so that's the match I see for those titles. Okay, those are my predictions for some of the matches that will take place at WrestleMania 40. There are a lot of people that I left out because WrestleMania is 2 nights and there are just so many possible scenarios that it'll take forever to think about every single person that's going to be involved. But for everybody else, let me know what you guys think is going to happen at WrestleMania. Leave your comments and thoughts about my predictions and share your predictions in the comment section below. Please like, share, subscribe, and you guys stay smooth.